Hey, everybody, welcome to Cars with Cocktails, a show that Charles and I have together where we drink stuff and talk about cars, and sometimes we say some pretty wild stuff.
It may
uh,
get a little wonky up in this piece. Also, to squash the comment of your production value is terrible, Paul and I put in minimum effort, and we're trying a couple new things. So what we're going to be doing today, kind of like we did when Paul and I were hanging out last time, is we are going to be on Instagram Live talking to you guys. If my editing skills are up to the task, aka I am not being super lazy, I will try and take this footage from my cellular device, plop it on the screen. So as you're watching on YouTube, well, if you're listening, you got to just listen. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see what the comments actually are over here on the phone. So if there's any weird looking, that's what's going on too. While Paul makes his drink, I will tell you about said drink of today. Like always, we're pulling a bit of an audible. It is called a Mad Blue. So it is 2 parts gin, 2 parts vodka. And Paul, say the word for me. 2 parts blue.
Curacao.
Curacao, which is cool. And CR Autosport said tonight's drink, eggnog. I have to tell you guys, I am one of those people that hate eggnog. So sorry for that if you are an eggnog fan. Josh is drinking gin and tonic, which is my go-to as well. Good choice, my friend, on that one. So I think as we kind of get rolling, and if you guys have questions on Instagram, get them ready. I actually first am going to start the Q&A off because I have a question for Paul on how that Mark V rear-wheel drive, all-wheel drive swap Mark V is doing.
Yeah, so if you're not familiar, we did a rear-wheel drive / all-wheel drive Mark II, or I'm sorry, not Mark II, Mark V, using a bunch of all-wheel drive parts from a variety of vehicles. We just launched a series about it about a week ago, maybe or so. Yeah, yeah, it's pretty heavy on the alcohol content.
I always say when like it's all alcohol, it's not gonna be my thing. And sometimes I'm like, wow, that's actually pretty tasty. This one is like drinking paint thinner.
It's like orange flavored paint thinner. It's not pleasant.
No, I'm gonna grab some tonic because it's not drinkable. I think some tonic would be good in it. I do think though, if you were to like get some orange juice in this or some kind of fruit juice in it, it probably would be really good.
It probably would if it wasn't. It's just too much. You're talking about 5 different shots of alcohol in it, and it's not a Long Island iced tea. So, yeah. So our Mark V series, we did blow it up originally, and then. Thank you for the feedback. And then eventually it did not blow up anymore. So I don't suspect it's going to last very long. It's very likely that car was never really intended to live rear-wheel drive full time. We may end up trying to do some drift stuff with it, but it's going to end up all-wheel drive eventually. So that's kind of the plan with that car long term. Again, if we can get to a drift event, or there's a guy actually up in Jersey that I connected with who does drifting, who actually has a drift school, we may do something with him, and that would be pretty neat if we do.
I love the idea of a drift school, by the way. I think that would be mad fun. And I'm hoping this tonic, like, adding this tonic, like, really comes out with a new kind of cool drink.
Okay, I'm gonna have to get something to make this tolerable.
It's good to hear though that the Mark V is doing so well. And if you guys haven't seen that series that they did, it's all out now. I'll try and link it up. If I don't, which is probably what's going to happen, just being honest with you, swing over to Shop Dap's YouTube channel and you can watch it all there. So let's try and jump into some questions and see what you guys got going on today. I've missed a few. Hope you all are doing awesome. A lot of hey Glens. So KW Glenn, what up? Can we ask questions? Of course. Yes, you can. Let's ask them up. A good bit of Irish whiskey. Schweppes tonic or nothing. I'm sorry, but you're not right on the Schweppes. Fever Tree is what's good. All right. So while you guys get your remote start in the Mark 7R, I've actually been thinking about that a lot today. There are aftermarket solutions. If you're like, I need this right now, I get it. There are aftermarket solutions. If you're waiting for me on the factory thing, I really need to go get a Tiguan and take some lower panels apart and really do some investigation on wiring and holders. I have the relay, the key programmed. So the big holdups for this, there are two main things. And I'll say a third thing about it in just a second. The two main things are the key programming. So there's no golf that came with remote start as far as Mark 7, 7.5, which means that there's no golf key that has the remote start button. So I used what I think it's a Tiguan remote. I mean, these cars are all MQB, right? So it should all basically be the same stuff. Use a Tiguan key, it programs. So awesome. We have beat the first boss in our quest for victory. The next one is going to be actually getting the module to accept the software to turn on essentially the remote start.
Charles, it might be muted. I'm getting some feedback that there's no audio
on Instagram.
Yeah,
no audio on my end.
No volume on my end.
Is it just the one? Because
is it just some of you guys or all of you guys?
Turn your volume on. I wonder. No, I don't know.
It's on all the way up. All the way up.
Okay.
The Deer Hunter. Okay. All right.
If you're not getting volume, it is a you problem or your equipment problem.
It's not a we problem, okay? It's a you problem.
Okay. So getting the relay installed is another issue, not a big one, probably one of the easier things to overcome. The Tiguan and the Atlas had provision to add this factory remote start. So the relay holder's already there. The wiring's already there. It's a boop, plug in a relay. The third thing, well, that's the third thing. I said the second thing and the third thing. So that's really what I'm waiting on. I got to go dig up these part numbers to make sure that we get this installed properly. I could just throw some wire pins in there, but you know that I don't want to do that. Now, what's going to be different for me compared to a lot of you is you are going to need dealership participation on this job, or aftermarket shop that runs Otis, or another version of Otis. So you're going to need that, because this is not going to be like a VCDS adaptation thing that you're going to get to work. This is dialing up the mothership for keys. And that, I think, more than anything, is going to be the thing that you guys are going to have a problem with. So I have my guys at the dealership. I can sweet talk. A lot of you probably don't have that. And you need to have a dealership that's willing to play along, right? And you have to understand, like, if it doesn't work, you're still paying for it either way. So just a couple of hiccups on that one. So sounds like a fat check. Yeah. Thoughts on diesels? I just put 1,800 miles on my wife's Touareg and averaged 26 miles per gallon through the mountains, going reasonable speeds. So I'm all in diesel. The only thing that's tricky about diesels when you're taking road trips is you got to make sure you, one, stop at a station that sells diesel fuel, and that some prick in a car isn't going in to get their snacks while they're not pumping gas in front of the one diesel pump that the effing gas station has. And the other one is a lot of the truck stops don't have a passenger car diesel pump, which means you may have to go in and pay, which I'm just, I'm not a fan.
Yeah.
Of, so.
And they have the big one, right? Those.
The big what?
The big nozzle. The diesel one, the truck.
I haven't ever had a. Well, I don't know, because I didn't want to go to the big truck pump, because I didn't want to go into the gas station.
Yeah. So I also, fun fact, while you were doing all that talking, when I opened this mineral water that Faye had us get, it exploded all over my lap. So I am.
Is there video of that? Did we not have it on the show?
I am thoroughly soaked in Topo Chico mineral water that just sprayed all over my lap. So
Paul is moist tonight. All right.
I totally did not piss myself at all. I swear it's not pee.
That's funny.
Yeah. So there we go. Diesels. Yeah. I think diesels realistically in our world are kind of dead. They still exist. They're still out there, but there's going to be no more. And I don't think the support for them is going to wane over time once they get past all that warranty stuff. I think they're going to start phasing out a lot of the parts in the US, and it's going to become more and more difficult to get them.
It's first of all, yes, this is Cars with Cocktails. So thank you guys for hanging out on the Instagram. I agree. The support is going to change. However, diesels are one space where there are so many just
People love
insane,
them.
fanatical, just hyper focused, like enthusiasts to the 25th level up from that, that there's still ridiculous support for the ALH that hasn't been made in 17 years, right? And they're all in shitty Mark IVs. Well, not all of them are shitty, but I mean, let's be honest, the Mark IV platform is not the car that's held up the best over the years. So, like everything, there'll always be a certain segment of it, but I do agree with you that the mainstream, I think it's the mainstream support's probably not going to be there.
Right. That's really what I mean.
Long
Obviously, I think the niche that exists for diesel TDI guys, they're psychos, and they're probably going to continue to be psychos. I don't think that's going to change anytime soon.
Yeah, it's a lot of like engineers that are way into that stuff, which I mean, they get into a level of minutia that is definitely not something for most of what we do. At least what I do anyway is super relevant. But I also think it's awesome that they carry that information so deep with what they do. So I have a lot of respect and a lot of admiration and a lot of just for that world as well, and swapped in Jeeps too.
Yes, no, ALHs are getting swapped in all kinds of things, and they're actually, ALH. Frankly, to me, it's not worth swapping in anything as far as I'm concerned because it's gutless, but it is a very reliable engine. I know someone's going to argue with me that in a Mark One it's not gutless, but like, man, the ALH is kind of gutless. Like you could put anything in and it'd be more powerful feeling.
In stock form, I agree. However, I think just the ease of modification and the simplicity of that engine. I mean, it'll run on any fuel just
and
about
forever. Yeah,
forever. I mean, you can't do that with a common rail.
You get slightly bad fuel, or just nuke the entire fuel system and total out the car. Yeah, see you later.
Someone's giving me a hard time that I said Mark IVs are shitty, that they're offended, and they're offended about that I'm calling them a mobile mechanic based on that post that I deleted that a lot of people got really sad about. And I tried to explain what I actually meant, and the internet wasn't having that, so I just deleted it. Funny enough, I got a direct message from someone calling me a coward for deleting it. And then he blocked me.
That's weird.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Kind of
I mean,
I also love Mark IVs, by the way. Look, there's one here. There's one part.
He has two of them right there. There's one right behind him. Old school diesel world feels like the old school Honda world, but more hardcore. Yeah, I can see that. Soft touch peeling off of everything in a Mark IV. Yeah, that's pretty standard. I actually did a video that I fucking despise doing with a Touareg, which was peeling off all of this shit and then painting all the buttons, which does take it from looking like trash to much nicer. And they have sticker overlays you can put on it so it looks all factory again or whatever. But god damn it, it's a lot of work, and you got to be severely committed that to do that. Question 15Q7 4-liter has exterior door lock buttons on the handles. Code says short circuit. Or I'm say replacing the handle. Yeah, so probably I would assume replacing the handle is probably the only option. I mean, if you have a fault that's electrical for a component that is electrical, 9 times out of 10, it's going to be the component itself.
If you're having an issue with one door, so I have seen, I don't know on the Q7 vintage, but I have seen Touaregs that have had the little button, because it was actually like a button that pushed in and out. On the one I'm thinking of, I'm not sure. I would assume maybe the Q7 is the capacitance touch. This is the symbol for capacitance touch. The capacitance touch, like the Touareg and the like Mark 7 or whatever. Before you just go buy handles, because it's the handle, it's the labor, which
you got to get painted. Yeah,
it's the paint, which is probably going to cost you more than the damn handles are going to cost. I would unclip the boots in the doors and just make sure you don't have some broken wires in the door. all four failing is weird. I don't know if on the Q7 and the BCM you can look at date codes for when that failure actually occurred. Was it like over 3 years of time and like you didn't notice that the right rear door didn't work because you never used it? Or
there's
is
also
it all
probably a
at
data
one
block.
time?
There's probably a data block to see if it's registering touch. Anyway, so
Totally a data block. And look,
mhm.
this is like the 15th time today that I feel like this has come up. If you are going to be a VW Audi DIYer, you have got to have a scan tool of some type,
Yes,
and
Mhm.
not
Not a generic
not
one. Yeah.
not not a
Mhm.
$25 fucking code reader that only reads active ECM faults. There's no point in you buying that. Okay, I'm a VCDS user. I think that's a far superior tool than anything else out there in that price range for VW Audi. If you want to go the OBD11 route, I'm okay with that. I don't think
It's
it's
fine.
as capable.
It's got holes, especially for where, but like to me, OBD11, who it's for is the average user. If you're talking about diag, like what we're just talking about with reading data blocks for handle recognition, blah blah blah, that type of stuff. To me, I don't even know. I do not have a lot of confidence to say without a doubt that OBD11 is going to have that data block. You can access it if you know what channel it needs to get to, but the likelihood that it's going to be labeled in any way is not likely, and VCDS is just a superior tool if you're doing heavy diagnostics. So for 95+% of people, I think OBD11 is probably a better choice. It's a little more user friendly, but for the rest of people, I think VCDS is hands down a much better product overall.
I would agree. They also have such an amazing support, and they've had an amazing support for the community. I mean, when I was up there last year for Waterfest, I stopped by VCDS, and he looked up my sales on my first VAGCOM cable that I bought in like early 2005. So they've been around a long time and their support is great. You need that. You need something to be able to do these things because the problem is you're going to send someone like Paul or I an email saying, hey, what do I do? And we're like, hell yeah, we want to help you. And the first thing we're going to ask you in a lot of cases is, have you scanned faults? And no offense to parts stores, but that scanner they're using at a parts store is not going to check your BCM, your body control module. It's not going to check your airbag module. It's not going to check any of that stuff. So if you're going to be a hardcore DIYer, you really do want to invest in that technology. It's worth every penny to me. So we got a question on RS3 dealer. It's an oscillating noise from 80 to 85 from the right rear of the vehicle. Dealer says wheels are balanced and tires are new. When I release the accelerator, the noise goes away. Wah, wah, wah. So this is like a coasting deceleration issue. This is a snapback hat, by the way, in case snapback hat. So we'll knock that one out real quick. All right, so tires are new. The odds of the wheels going back on the same corner after a new set of tires is pretty low. So I don't want to say we've eliminated the wheel and tire package, right, assembly as the issue, but it's probably not. Rear wheel bearings are mad common failing on all MQB, on all VW and Audi, right? On all MQB cars. I would also be considering, although I've never seen a rear axle fail on a VW or Audi, I would also be thinking maybe like an inner CV joint having an issue.
Josh is saying rear diff bearing. I mean, I think, yeah, it could be something related to drivetrain. Obviously, here's the thing. Bottom line, any noise concern is nearly impossible for us to give anybody advice. If people actually diagnosing it can't find it immediately, there's no way any advice we're going to have is probably going to give you any insight that's going to give you an epiphany that's going to say like, oh, hey, here it is. Diagnosing noises requires being, I'm sure, Charles, you probably get this a lot. I know I do. People send you videos like, hey, what's this noise? And you can like barely faintly hear it. But if you were diagnosing a noise in person, you use the surrounding area to understand like, where is it coming from? And you move your head closer to places and further away from places, try to locate where the noise is coming from. Once you pinpoint it, then you can try to duplicate it, blah, 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 all that stuff. So I think that's a common misconception people have, is that we are able to diagnose noises in any reliable way, unless it's something you've seen 90 times, you know?
Yeah, it's a tough one. I would recommend with your noise, set up an appointment wherever you're getting it serviced, if it's a dealer, because the car's under warranty or not, or aftermarket shop. Set up an appointment and make sure that when you call and set this appointment up, you're saying, hey, I have a noise. I would like to ride with the technician. Go on a ride with the tech. Point out the noise to them so that they know which of the 85 noises your car has is the one you're actually worried about. And then go from there. But as Josh mentioned, rear diff bearing, that's probably more likely than an axle or a CV joint issue. Wheel bearings, the number one thing I've seen. That's kind of an odd noise for a wheel bearing traditionally, but I just have to tell you, odd noises for wheel bearings are stupid common now because they just make all kinds of weird noises that wasn't necessarily the case. It used to be driving along. If you turn one way and load up the other side, the noise would move left to right. Now it doesn't always do that. Sometimes it's acceleration, sometimes it's deceleration. It really all depends on what you got. Fuel line vibration can also cause that. That is a distinct rattle, though. That sounds like a really weird, like car coming apart rattle.
So V10 TDI sat 87,000 miles, sat in a field for 2 years. Yikes is what I have to say to that. Man, what would you do first? I mean, obviously do basic maintenance, oil change, fuel filter, all that stuff. But aside from that, I mean, I would say that would be a car I would bring to somebody, have them take a look at, do all your diagnostic around engine faults, blah, blah, whatever. If it's running fine, okay. I mean, battery management is a serious issue on those things. So I would just straight away replace both batteries. If you're not familiar, V10 TDIs and then also some of the higher line Touaregs all had batteries in the trunk and in onto the driver's side seat. I would just replace both of them because early Touaregs were a clusterfuck when it came to
yeah.
When it came to battery management. And if one of the batteries was like slightly less voltage than the other, the shit would freak out and it would ruin your whole life. So that was if you were a technician, not the customer, because the car is under warranty. But yeah, so that would be my advice. I don't know what, feel free, Charles, if you jump in.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you there. Josh said to sell it. Actually, that's not terrible.
That is not bad advice at all.
My big concerns would be kind of in two major areas. Paul, you pretty much hit on both of them. One, the electrical system of the vehicle, mostly related around water leaks. Yes, it's a Volkswagen, so it's probably had a water leak at some point in its life. And that car makes for a very, very painful amount of water leaks. The other thing I would really be looking to do, and I didn't see your comments, so I'm not sure how detailed you got in it, is I would be looking at the fuel system. Is this something that we can do a fuel filter, fire it up and go? Or is this something we need to flush out all the fuel and get a nice, fresh, clean, full tank of good quality, fresh diesel?
Yeah, because diesel gels over time. So
exactly, and go that route. That may be taking the tank pumps out, sucking it all out, cleaning it all out, and going way deep. I've also seen air filters on those and the 3 liters, weirdly, get saturated with water and cause a no start condition because it goes from an open cell filter to essentially now it's clogged with water. So that may be something you want to think of as well. But man, if it's running, I would drive it, do all of it, every single component that has a fluid in it. I would change it. I would make sure all the maintenance is up to date on it with like brake fluid, of course, and tires and that kind of stuff. I would want a full scan on the car, and then I would drive it.
We had a customer, God, I was so heartbroken when the guys at the shop told me about this. He had just bought a V10 TDI Touareg, and he brought it in for us to post-purchase inspect it. And I think we wrote him something like a $6,500 estimate on the thing. It was a yikes. So that's just a preview as to what's possible if you have a V10 TDI. And here's the thing that I always tell people is understand this. V10 TDIs are badass Touaregs. I don't think anybody would deny that. Myself, Charles, I saw Josh in the comments talking about V10 TDI sell it. None of us would deny a V10 TDI is a badass vehicle, but things to keep in mind. none of us own V10 TDI Touaregs. Now, it's very important to understand something, is that we, me, him, Josh, whoever, other industry people, if the V10 TDI was not something you should run and hide from, we would own them because they're fucking awesome. But it isn't, which is why we don't own them. And just be prepared. And I'm not judging anybody who owns one. I think they're awesome vehicles. But to me, it's important to understand that you better buckle up. You want to buy a V10 TDI? Buckle up, because this could be a wild ride.
Yeah, and the less you pay for it,
The more it's going to cost you
for it. So keep that in mind too. You're still fixing and maintaining a $90,000 SUV, whatever it is, just because it was 12 when you bought it, 15 years later, doesn't mean that the parts have gone down and the labor has gone down accordingly. You're still fixing and maintaining that whole thing. So keep that in mind. Darth GTI, what's a turnaround time on wheel bearing replacement? Having the same issue for new tires, thinking that it was the tires, but the local dealer said it's a normal sound, not normal. Normal turnaround time. So a wheel bearing job, the actual R&R, remove and reinstall, or remove and install
2 hours,
of a
maybe?
wheel bearing, 2 hours, 2.5 hours, something in that ballpark.
Yeah.
Keep in mind that is not mean that's how long your car is going to take to get fixed, because there's test drives involved, there's parts involved, there's scheduling involved. That should be, I feel like, if the parts are available, if the dealer has the parts, that's a same day job. If the dealership has to order the parts, I'm thinking that maybe 2 days kind of max, assuming the part's available. If it's not available, well, you're at the mercy of the parts depot. So, but yeah, wheel bearings are not, especially on most of the cars we're talking about, is not like moving mountains.
Ever since the Mark IV, wheel bearings were fairly simple because they bolt in and it make your life a million times easier. They're actually a legitimate DIY, unless you come from very, very northern places where they're completely rusted in. Actually, Max, who works for us, who Charles knows, had bought a car that was a good deal from the Northeast, and it needed a wheel bearing, and he went to replace it, and it was on a Mark V, and he had to actually press it out. So he unbolted it. Then he had to eventually take the knuckle off and press it out because it was rusted into the knuckle. So that's hey, Josh, in the comments, if you see him, Josh is from the Northeast and he has to deal with that shit all the time. We get to live in the South where we don't have a lot of rust. So yeah, nana poo poo. Stick your head in
There's a
doo-doo.
reason I never moved back to the Midwest, and that is one that ranks pretty high up on the list. The list I have to say. So customer just bought a Touareg and needed a compressor and a steering rack. Touareg was sitting for 3 years.
Yikes.
Ouch. And that's the problem. Like, we look at cars that have really low miles, right? And we're like, oh, it's got low miles on it. It's only been, we don't necessarily extrapolate like the average miles per year. I don't know what it is now, but for the longest time, it was like 12 to 15,000 miles per year. This year, it's probably like 3,000 miles for everybody. So we see a 10-year-old car with 150,000 miles and we think, oh my God, it's got so many miles on it, when it really doesn't. It's kind of on the average side. And I can tell you with confidence, in the VW Audi world, a car that does not get driven is far more problematic than a car that gets driven a lot. Now, if you're beating the shit out of the car, okay, it's probably not better. But if you're that traveling salesperson or you just drive a lot, you have to maintain your car a little bit better. And most people that do drive that kind of miles do maintain their car a little bit better. It's the ones that don't get driven but once or twice a week, every other week, a month, that always have more problems. Almost every single time. Like this car, right? Perfect.
How many
example.
cars do you have that fit that criteria?
Most
all of them.
all but one of them. The R is a little shaky on the mileage, but so this blue R32 behind me is a perfect example, right? When I got it, I drove the crap out of it, drove it all the time. It was great. When I got the yellow car and started driving it less, it started getting bitchy and fussy and like asshole drive me, and then I would, and it's like, I don't really feel like going into first gear this morning because I'm all sassy and bitchy. It's a diva, right? She's kind of a diva. So yeah, I in general would much rather buy a VW and Audi with more miles than someone thinks should have, that was well maintained, than something with really low miles that wasn't driven or doesn't have any maintenance records. I mean, the black R32, the engine that I pulled apart, it looked great for 216,000 miles or some shit like that. Like, bro, miles are not the factor that
Well,
make a car shitty.
to be fair, we just pulled apart a BDF engine not that long ago that is kind of shitty. So
Yeah, but
you
that
know.
one clearly was not maintained. That thing was. What's the status on that anyway?
It needed some parts. That's it's at the machine shop right now. It's getting finished up. So yeah, we'll have more. Charles and I have another project, super secret
Sequit,
squirrel
sequit,
I didn't.
sequin, super
I'm
sequin
I'm
squirrel.
hunting for wabbits.
Yeah,
The secret squirrel project we have coming. Yeah.
squirrel.
So the yeah, that's a
Yeah,
project we have
that
coming.
that's the
But
thing.
my S4 when I bought it, that car had 125,000 miles on it, something like that. I bought it intentionally because I was hoping that this car was going to blow up and have problems, whatever. Um, the first problem I had was the starter problem, which which
Is that when
sucks.
it caught on fire?
Yes, that's when it caught on fire. Which sucks shit to fix. I don't know if you've ever done a starter on S4. I'm sure you haven't. It sucked shit to do, which I made a video on, which you can
Hashtag watch my video.
hashtag enjoy my pain.
Yeah,
That's mostly
we
what
all
that
do.
video is. Yeah.
So Sean has a good question, Paul, and I'd like to know where your thoughts are on this. Thoughts on lowering springs and not calibrating the adaptive cruise control radar. Says he was quoted $800 for the recalibration alone. Okay, that's probably not just for
we,
recalibration. That's probably the whole
yikes.
thing, alignment and everything.
That's
Um,
probably that seems even high for that because I thought it was 4 hours for alignment and
So the way that
four and a
we were
half.
told to charge is charge for the alignment. So that's whatever, $100, $90, and then 1 hour labor per operation. So if you have adaptive cruise, that's an hour. If you have lane departure, that's an hour. If you have park pilot or whatever, that's an hour. So it really depends on what they would be,
So
calibrating.
here's the thing that I don't know if that I'm not exactly clear on these details. So I'm on the impression that newer cars no longer require calibration. Is that there's a window of cars that require calibration during alignment. Otherwise, you can they will recalibrate themselves. Um, Now I think that's a 15 to 17 from what my memory serves, if it serves correctly. But and anything beyond that can be aligned and readapted, and it will relearn on its own. Maybe you can shed more light on this.
So as I understand it by the book, if there's any change at all to toe on the vehicle, so right, tires
Mhm.
pointing in, tires pointing
Yeah.
out, then it needs a recalibration. And when you calibrate one, there's others that you have to calibrate too, right? I don't think you have to calibrate the lane departure for adaptive cruise control stuff. That said, I can say with confidence there are plenty of cars out there running around with adaptive cruise control that are reasonably lowered. And I think that might be the key, is reasonably
They're
lowered.
not slammed.
If,
Yeah.
if you're spinning those spindles all the way down on your coilovers, your your ACC not working is probably the least of your problems. But if you're doing like a mild drop, right, a 1 inch, 1.5 inch drop, I have seen tons of cars not get calibrated and be absolutely just perfectly fine. The vehicle has to be able to adapt for certain things, right? It's not like when you're a thousandth of a millimeter off of an alignment angle, the adaptive cruise control and the radars aren't going to work. the theory I've heard a lot of people say, even with the cars that should be adapted every single time you align them, is that if the alignment was out, right? So when the car's new, the alignment is perfect, big air quotes, perfect, and the ACC works, adaptive cruise control works. Over time, the alignment becomes out, the ACC still works. If it worked new and it worked with it slightly out, putting it back to new shouldn't do shit, but put it back to new, right? It shouldn't affect how the ACC works. Now, there's another piece that comes into play with shops doing the work for you. If you're doing it yourself, whatever, it doesn't matter. But are they prepared to make this modification to your car and not follow the book and put themselves at risk for you saying your adaptive cruise control didn't work? I know you modified your car so you don't give a shit, but you know there's that dude, thousands of people out there that are going to say, well, they didn't tell me I needed this. No, they did it anyway.
We dealt with it recently. We had a customer with a Touareg 3 in the shop. We were doing a headlight diag. They were having a problem with the LED DRL. And part of the diag was going to be to swap modules from side to side to verify whether we thought it could be one of the modules or the headlight itself. We were trying to eliminate that, right? So, but obviously to do so, we have to remove the bumper. And, you know, part of our discussion with the customer is like, hey, understand something is that your adaptive cruise, after we remove this bumper, may not work anymore. Do you want us still to continue with this process of the diagnosis? Right. Customers fine with it, but the important part is that knowing that's a problem and then communicating that to the customer before you even proceed with that, because they may say, fuck it, that DRL I don't care that much about, you know.
Right.
Like,
so Classic Car Motorsports said their Golf R required calibration from the replacing the radiator, right? I've had the front grill off my Mark 7.5 a ton of times and never had to have it calibrated. Like, it works perfectly. I suppose I could check and see if it's like actually functioning properly, but it works just fine. So
who knows?
I think this is such a new thing that there's still this really gray area that you're going to get, if you ask enough people, you're going to get all the answers. You're going to get all the possible solutions from, yes, if you don't do it, your car's going to fucking explode, to, don't worry about it. You're lowering your car 1.5 inches. It's fine. We've lowered 10 cars this week and none of them had an issue. So,
and the reality is, I think none of us have enough experience yet to even say definitively one way or the other in terms of which one is true. Or which one is universally true, probably.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
I saw some comments about a couple things that I think are good, worth touching on because of what we're talking about. Is one, adjusting headlights when lowering cars, and then two, adjusting, readaptating your adjustable
readaptating your adjustable adaptators is what
readapting your adjustable dampening.
Yeah.
So when you have adjustable dampening, there is a procedure. I have been meaning to make a video on this for a long time, and I have never done it. Is around after you lower your car and you have adaptive dampening on your car,
dynamic chassis control.
Dynamic DCC. Yeah. So when you have a DCC car, you do a readaptation on the shocks after lowering, and it will actually change the way it feels after lowering. Because if you don't, it will shift the way the dampening feels afterwards as opposed to before. So stock no longer feels stock anymore. It feels more like the next lower rung down. And then the next rung down feels like the next rung down, and so forth. So everything now shifts to being harsher as opposed to less harsh. So if you do a readaptation afterwards, you can actually avoid that and have it stay. And I assume that, I don't know because I've never personally felt it, but I assume there'll be a slight shift down to will be a slightly harsher, but not very harsh. And in terms of lighting, the important part about lighting is something that you absolutely should adapt afterwards. I made a video on the S4 about it. It's very easy to do a readaptation on. It does like kind of a level like meh, 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 kind of whatever, but it says it resets the baseline for your headlight adaptation. It doesn't require manual adjustment of the adjusters. You got to be super careful with that because you can adjust it off the adjusters and fuck your headlights up. Um, which Charles laughing because obviously people have knocked their headlights off the adjusters, and now you need $1,000 headlight because you did that. Um, yeah, so those are two important notes when you're dealing with lowering cars that are modern day cars.
Yeah. So circling a little bit back to the ACC, Eurodub said that even on the recall for the Mark 7 Jetta headlights, required removing the grille, said to recalibrate the ACC. That to me is a little bit different. If you are required to do a certain procedure from the factory, right? A recall, they are always going to tell you you have to do the adaptation, the calibration, whatever it is. Because what they don't want to do is you to remove the grill, do the headlight recall, put it all back together, not do the adaptation. That customer gets in an accident. The first thing they're going to say is, well, my adaptive cruise control didn't work. That's why I rear-ended that semi without even touching the brakes, because my
Which
hands weren't even
Tesla
on the
has,
steering wheel.
obviously Tesla has all the data, but they've proved people who have said that to be true to be liars.
Right.
And I don't, other manufacturers, now I'm sure there's some black box data, whatever, blah, blah, whatever. But Tesla, with what they're monitoring live on their cars, which, Big Brother, I'm not a super big fan of myself, but um, they've proved that to be people straight up lying about what was happening at the time. So just something to be aware of. Obviously, for any shop is always trying to do their best to protect themselves from a major litigation as to the worst case scenario of what happened. So it's easy to play armchair quarterback and judge somebody, but if your livelihood and your entire future was on the line, you might see things a little bit differently.
Yeah, and that I think is where you're going to find when shops say this, dealers especially, this is the only way we're going to fix this. There's a lot more behind it than they're just trying to fuck you, is
Right.
what it comes down to, right?
Yeah. And yeah, that, and it's interesting is I actually thought, I mean, maybe we should do a separate episode on this, but my thoughts were is around having a discussion about why dealerships and or shops don't try to help customers save money in their eyes, um, in ways that you theoretically could save money, which would be instead of replacing, you attempt to fix it, or instead of fixing it, you do X, whatever it may be. And obviously, there probably has to be some concrete examples that we come up with for me to give good examples of these things. But it happens a lot, and I think the thing that brought it up for me was mech units, is because mech units are one of those things that in our world we pretty much just like, hey, you got to replace the mech unit, right? Um, but in the world of people online, they're like, oh, you can just replace a solenoid, just replace it and be done with it. But the reality is, if we as a shop go and replace a solenoid, we charge a customer, let's say, I don't know, let's say it's 6 hours labor, pull a mech unit out, whatever, blah blah, replace the solenoid, reset the DSG fluid level, replace the solenoid, blah blah, and install back in the car. Shit's not fixed. Okay, cool. Now you've paid us $600 in labor plus whatever part costs or whatever, and now, hey, Mr. Customer, the bill's $700. Car's not fixed. You feel like shit about it. Now what do we do?
Yeah. Now you're buying the mech unit.
Now you need a $1,300 mech unit on
Yep.
top of an additional 5 hours in labor to replace it.
Apparently I'm glitching out. That's just my normal. I don't know where to look. Someone said that it's all about the numbers and that they don't care about their customers. I actually disagree with that mostly, but I think where I might agree is that they don't care about one customer so much that they're willing to completely risk their entire business for one customer.
Here's what I'll say. I think we both, in my experience, we both come from pretty good dealer groups. Mine and yours, both good dealer groups. They have plenty of their downsides, but I think, as a general rule, I would consider these to be good people. With that said, I think there are dirtbags who could give two fucks about their customers.
100%. 100%.
But and I think, of all the people, I think we are both probably the biggest defenders and non-defenders of dealerships at the same time. There are plenty of dealerships who are dirtbags who do stupid shit that I can't fucking believe. When I hear shit, I'm like, I cannot fucking believe it when I hear a customer being told some insane amount of money for some job that I'm like, I can't. At retail, we're charging less than half of that in terms of hours and whatever else. Forget about their labor rate being different, whatever. But I don't even understand how you fucking got there. So that happens all the time. And especially now, obviously being more public, you and I both see that stuff. And it's just like, scratch your head. You don't know what the hell's happening. At the same time, we come from places where we know people who get motherfucked left and right and don't deserve it.
Yep. 100%. Look, I've said this a million times. The automotive industry has earned its reputation that it has. There's complete shitheads out there. I do genuinely believe, though, that the majority are legit good and really trying hard to do right by their business, by their techs, maybe by their techs last, but whatever, by their business and by their customers. And sometimes it's a shit situation, no matter where you bring it, no matter what happens, shit fucking falls apart. You could have the best intentions, the best customer, the best car, shit just falls apart. It pisses me off that there pisses me off that there would be one, but it pisses me off that the number of shithead shops that don't care about their customers is what it is. Paul and I, and a lot of you guys watching too, that run shops, that are technicians, are mechanics, shop owners, whatever your station is in the automotive industry, fucking work really hard to have to overcome all the bullshit that your ancestors have caused before you. And that fucking pisses me off. It pisses me off that today people still just do the same old shit over and over and over again, not truly fucking caring about their customers. It is one of those things. So I have a couple of things that really get me riled up. That's one of them. If you really ever want to see me get super riled, HOAs is another one that'll get me riled up. But we're going to move on from that because question about common Mark V R32 issues, especially the ones around 100K, all OEM maintenance.
I just want to say something. I'm seeing a lot of comments about your beard, and it's frankly, I'm feeling a little bit of beard envy in this situation. Yeah. And I'm feeling like I need to grow a beard so that I could get some beard boners.
Have that haircut though.
I get some beard boners chasing after me.
The trick haircut though, man.
Yeah.
I don't have the
I have beard boner envy. I'm just gonna say that I may grow a beard and get and end up divorced if I do that.
But you'll have some beard bros.
But I will have some beard boners all up in my junk.
All right,
anyway, Mark V R32s. We're gonna go there.
Paul's just chugging that stuff he pissed all over himself straight from the bottom. By the way, let's circle back. I have a question before we move on to these Mark V issues.
Am I still wet? Yes.
Are you still moist? Yes.
A little, yes.
Of course. And did adding that seltzer water or whatever, which I got to say, I'm not a seltzer water fan, but that was actually pretty decent. Did that change your opinion on that drink?
It's better, but goddamn, it's still too much.
I actually think it's not bad. However, I probably wouldn't drink that normally. So if if you want to try the Mad Blue drinks, what it is, I found this app that you just like punch in the things you have on hand, and it tells you like the drinks that you can make. One was called a mustache ride, Paul, and I didn't
I
have
like
the
that.
chaser for
I
it.
like that.
I will send it to you, and next week, my friends, we will be Paul and I will both be enjoying a delicious mustache ride.
Who wants a mustache ride? I
Everybody
do.
wants a mustache
I
ride.
do.
Back to Mark V issues. I gotta say, even Mark IV and Mark V, R32s were very good cars, very reliable as far as all of that goes.
Agreed. Mech units probably the biggest concern. Really,
mech units would be the biggest concern for me.
Thermostat housing.
All the other things are just common VW stuff. You're going to probably have a door latch that goes bad. You're probably going to have a water leak from the sunroof. You're probably going to have an oil leak from the valve cover, right? You're probably going to have a CV boot that goes bad. You might have a wheel bearing that goes bad. Other than that, now, that said, there are failures on these cars. Every part can fail.
Any car can have a failure of any kind, right? So to me, I think let's common Mark V R32 problems. Major concerns, probably wheel bearing, door latch, thermostat housing, crack pipe. If you're not familiar with what that is, if you have VR, you should be aware of it. The intake manifold runner. I don't know how common those rattly guys were on the BJS engine. Is that no?
I don't think that was a BJ.
No, BJS was Mark IV.
Crack pipe. I grabbed a crack pipe.
There you go. He's got a crack pipe.
Switch back. There it is. Crack pipe. This is the coolant flange, but the thermostat housing. God, focus that. This is the. Did that work?
Come close. Bring it closer to you. God damn it!
I'm trying. I'm wiggling it. There it is. It's still not focusing. Just likes my face so much. I get anyway. This is the parts Paul was talking about. So
yeah. So those two would be components you'd be concerned about. Other than that, Mark V R32 is a pretty solid car. I actually think as an R32, it's probably the least loved one, or as an R car, it's the least loved one. But as a vehicle to drive, it's a pretty solid, reliable vehicle. DSGs in 08 were not super great yet in terms of mech units. So that could be a concern as well. Otherwise, I would say it's a fine car. I have no problems with them. And frankly, you don't pay the tax that you do with a Mark IV R32. You're paying a tax out your ass right now.
Stupid. Dude, I saw one, because people send me Mark IV R32 stuff all the time because they clearly, right? It was how many miles it had? It had a lot, like 100, maybe 200. Maybe it wasn't a lot of miles. I don't know. What the hell am I talking about? I don't know. Anyway, it was $18,000. The driver's seat side bolster, which is really common failure point because you're like sliding in and out of the seat all the time, was blown apart. It had rust. It had a grill missing. It was silver on cloth, which was cool, but nothing like exceptional.
That is
about
not
it.
18 grand. That's not an 18.
The headliner was peeling, and I'm like, $18,000. Like the shit that had 1,000 miles on it. It was brand new, basically, that sold earlier this year, last year for like 70 grand. Okay, I get it. But your piece of shit ragged out Mark IV that if it was not an R32 would be $1,000 car is not worth $17,000.
Just to be clear, what you described is not $1,000 car, probably. It may not even be $1,000.
If it was a VR6, it would be $1,000.
Okay. Let's not press our luck here. I guess that's fair. We bought a VR6 for our project.
One other thing on the Mark V R32 that I have actually seen a lot of failures, and someone made a comment about, not that specifically, I don't think, but it made me think of it. Is headlight failure is actually common on those xenon headlights, and you can
the igniters and shit. Yeah,
but I'm sure you guys sell them, or even
of course we sell them.
Marinelli, Steve Mariucci headlights.
Steve Mariucci. Let's see what else
49ers.
Yeah, $60,000. R32. Yeah, that R32 was pretty wild, but at least it was a nice car. Like I think that obviously that person paid an insane amount of money for that car, but that car was a very nice car.
I
So
feel like with the R32, and I was talking to somebody, the same guy that sent me that silver on cloth, which is I think red on cloth, then silver on cloth are my two, like in that order, my favorite combos. Just because that's like there's the least amount out there. I think we've pretty much, except the rare bird, hit the pinnacle of R32 pricing for like this time cycle. I think the next increases that we see in that market are going to be purely inflationary. At least I don't hope that. I hope they go up in price and people want to pay a fucking stupid amount of money so I can sell this black one and buy a nicer Porsche than this car would ever be. But whatever. Someone said no love for the Fahrenheit. The Fahrenheit GTI is the only Mark V that I like. So that is how I feel about them.
the Fahrenheit GTI is, by the way, and I didn't know this until very recently, is there was a Fahrenheit Fast.
Yeah, the orange one. I have someone in my on my page has that as their profile picture.
I was planning to buy one that was for sale. I never saw them before, and then my life, as it does, became a clusterfuck, and I completely missed the end of the eBay auction, blah blah blah, and that's it. I've missed out. I have a Fast, actually, literally right here.
By the way, Josh says he's going to build me a Mark V that I'll love. Josh, I can get away with it.
I'm going to go ahead and doubt it.
As long as it's Fahrenheit orange or whatever the orange is, my wife loves that car too, so I can get away with that. So,
oh, really? She likes the Fahrenheit orange? I like Fahrenheit cars.
Yeah, me too.
Honestly, the only disappointment for me about Fahrenheits is that they weren't special. Like, we came from 337, 20th anniversary, very unique car. Didn't perform for shit better than the regular GTI, but aesthetically was better looking, and interior wise was light years ahead. And then you went to the Fahrenheit, and it was like, we painted this car a different color.
See, I think VW just completely fucked the pooch on that one.
It
was a super rare car. They were cool as shit. You could get the Jetta and a DSG and a manual, but it's just like, oh, some fucking random orange car showed up. Wow, cool. But it had cool wheels. It was an awesome color. I don't remember. I think it had different seats too. Maybe orange stitching on the steering wheel and the limited number. Did it have the? I don't know if they were.
It didn't have a bat. They were numbered. I think. Yeah.
I think so. They could have done them. They could have done an amazing job with them. But they kind of screwed the marketing pooch. But as we've found out, the U.S. allocation for marketing is, well, you know what it is now because you have the Tiguan, you have the Atlas, you have the other Tiguan, you have the Taos, you have the ID4, which is pretty much fucking SUV, and probably 75 other SUVs that will.
But to be fair, and this is not. I don't want to hate on the people, our brethren, who we know, the people we know close at VOA. There are plenty of people we know who are enthusiasts of VOA.
100%.
The reality is that the American market is full of people who want to drive fucking SUVs. And A, Americans hate hatchbacks. B, America.
They just want to drive big, tall hatchbacks, which is fucking awesome.
America loves tall hatchbacks that are slightly stretched out a little bit, but not wagons, because fuck wagons.
Yeah.
Wagons are terrible.
Stupid.
SUVs.
Lift a wagon up.
Amazing.
Got it. I need one.
Perfect.
Give me 4 of them. 25-seater.
Yeah, that's perfect. So otherwise we won't have it. And frankly, I get it. I don't drive an SUV. I don't know what to tell you. I take that back. I have a Touareg. So yeah, there's that.
I was a little sad when we donated the Passat wagon earlier this year, but I have to tell you, man, after driving that Touareg 2,000 miles in 3 days, that shit's nice, bro. And I mean, it's a Touareg, so it's not just like an MQB SUV or anything like that, but that shit is nice.
How about
It's nice.
you don't even tell me I have a Honda Odyssey.
One of the best,
I-
the best minivan ever made. So
the best
I'm not,
minivan ever
I'm not hating
made.
on that. Someone
Uh,
asked about, by the way, they asked it twice and I saw it both times. So I'm going to, oh yes, the Unpimped Ziauto commercials were one of my favorite VW commercials.
Yes, they were great.
It was about DSG services, doing early DSG services, 30K instead of 40K. I think that's fine, especially if you're doing a lot of high performance driving. I actually think that's a great choice. I'll probably do mine at 20 on the R. I'll probably pull the pump out and inspect it too, because the pump failure, I guess, is not super common, but common enough where I want to see if there's any metal shavings in it.
Haldex.
Yes.
So we had.
say
You talking about DSG? So I wasn't
sorry.
following.
I'll
I was
also-
reading. I was
yeah.
reading comments, so I
Well, I
was
don't know
not
what I'm
100.
talking about.
Yeah.
I didn't even finish that drink, and I still don't know what I'm talking about. This is just me all the time.
So we had a customer. Actually, really interesting is that we had a customer who had an A3, had a Haldex problem. He came in for a DSG or Haldex service. We serviced it, still wouldn't engage Haldex. David pulled it in. He actually pulled the pump out, pulled everything out, and then actually sprayed brake clean through it, and was able to get a bunch of shit to come out through the fluid channel. And once it unclogged all the shit that came out, everything was fine. Everything was great. Haldex engaged. It was all fine. So
someone says VW Blue Shark said they have a white Tiguan, a blue Tiguan, and a blue Tiguan R. I love the Tiguan R line, by the way. The new
I think they're
style.
great. The new, first of all,
favorite SUV that they made.
The big one, any of the MQB Tiguan's, I think are very good looking vehicles. Like the previous Tiguan, not a huge fan of personally. Myself, I think they have their place for them. People like them, whatever. But then the MQB Tiguan, I think is a good looking vehicle and objectively a pretty value deal relative to the market.
Yeah, I'm not sure price point wise, but if you get a 2-wheel drive R line, you got like under 30K, decent sized. Oh, look, Paul, someone asked why you're so handsome.
I can't help it. I think
it's because he's TikTok famous, obviously. As an aura of
I recently had a video that went quite viral on TikTok. If you follow us on Instagram, I posted there too. It got 16,000 views on Instagram and 3.3 million on TikTok. So, this is that.
Anyway, yeah, that's a topic for another day. I think we're actually coming up on our time.
We are approaching the end here
for our Instagram Live. So, look, if you're on Instagram Live and you've hung out with us, first of all, thank you very much for hanging out with us. Much, much appreciated.
Yes,
Hope you
thank you.
time. If you want to have a Mad Blue.
Don't have it. It's terrible. It's not a good drink at all.
2 parts vodka, 2 parts gin, 1 part. I use Grand Marnier, but whatever orangey flavor.
Don't do it. It tastes like shit. Don't do it.
You deserve a better drink, in my opinion, but it is not as terrible as Campari, which is just the worst thing ever.
Yeah, I will always like to say at the end of every show, Campari, an Italian liquor, it is the shittiest alcohol that has ever existed. It is the Maserati of alcohols. It is very expensive. It's very terrible. You should never drink it. Never, ever drink Campari. I will say that until I'm in the goddamn grave.
Yes, on purpose, we skipped the W12 GTI comment. No, we didn't. Just kidding. I just didn't see it till right now. With that, on Instagram, we are.
That's an episode.
Hey, if you guys want to watch this episode with, you already did, but if you want to watch it again, it'll be on YouTube next week.
It'll be on YouTube.
Cars with Cocktails. You know the channel. You should subscribe anyway. And I don't know. That's all for this, I guess.
That's it, guys. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.